Part 96. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 961. Nowadays, the whole country is in turmoil and is in danger. Although the dog-eat-dog fight between King Zhenbei and King Pingzi ended with the death of King Pingzi and King Zhenbei hiding outside the western region pass. But now the king in the east has raised the banner of anti-thief and launched a showdown to attack King Du. The king in Chenese has strong soldiers and horses, and is guiding the country behind the scenes. The two armies have reached hundreds of miles away from King Du. This is only a few hundred miles away. In one night's attack, they can enter King Du. And tonight. Battle report from the front. The king of Chenese and the king of Garrison in the east, together with the army of Dakian, fought with King Du. Inside King Du, the lights of thousands of houses were extinguished and the streets were deserted. A series of dark figures quickly fell from the city wall. They only stopped in the dark for a moment, and then dispersed in an orderly manner, moving along the corner wall of the house and moving invisibly. The movements and postures while walking were very professional. They walk silently, breathe without mist, and kill without mercy. They are assassins who obey the orders of King Chenese and are affiliated with Mud Bodhisattva. They come from the Bodhisattva building. Tonight, they will carry out the last order given by the clay Buddha. As long as they complete this final order, they can choose a secluded place and wait for dawn. When the sun rises again, the country changes hands, and they are no longer the scum hiding in the darkness, but wealthy businessmen, princes, high-ranking officials, and powerful ministers who can be upright and walk under the light. In this whirlpool of chaos sweeping through Dakian, everyone has dreams, and everyone is working for the future, for a better future. It's about to end. Yilin was in the courtyard of Chang'an Palace, looking at the starless, moonless, and lightless night. The sky was as dark as a roof. In the darkness, Yilin couldn't see her fingers. The king of Chenese really knows how to choose the day. Yilin smiled, with Bai Chuchu on her shoulders. He was counting with his fingers, counting whether he had missed anything at the end. 1 2 3 4. Yilin counted little by little. Suddenly, he turned back to the closed gate of Chang'an Palace and asked with a smile, "There is one more thing I don't know. But it's okay to say it." Concubine Shu's gentle voice came from the room. "Does the death of Zen Master Kuya have anything to do with you?" There was silence in the room for a while. After silence, Concubine Shu's voice came out, "Master Kuya, after he learned about the existence of the Book of Heaven, he begged the AI family to lend him the Book of Heaven. Did you borrow it?" "Nature." "Then what did he see?" "The AI family doesn't know." Concubine Shu sighed softly in the room, "but his death was not caused by anyone, but his life." Yilin turned around and looked at the thin paper window, her eyes seeming to penetrate the thin paper and see through the expressions of the people in the room. "By the way, I have a secret that I think you will be interested in." After a while, Yilin did not continue to dwell on the cause of Zen Master Kuya's death, but looked away, leaving behind a sentence whether intentionally or not. "Oh. I'll tell you before I die." Yilin took out the skateboard, sprayed it into the sky, and disappeared in the darkness in an instant. After Yilin left, Concubine Shu Sai came from the room. "What an infatuated human race, son." She seemed to have misunderstood something. "But that doesn't matter. If you misunderstand, you will misunderstand." Even if Yilin heard the sentence, she probably wouldn't bother to explain it. "My lord." Meow Meow, who was helping Concubine Shu to hammer her shoulders, tilted her head and asked, "What is infatuation?" Concubine Shu explained, "It's just deep love." "Then what is deep love?" "Don't ask again." "All right." Meow Meow pursed her cat's lips in a depressed manner. She had the illusion that she was stupid. Snapped. Right now. Outside the house. There was an almost inaudible sound. If Concubine Shu and the two maids in the house were ordinary people, this sound, which was softer than the wind blowing leaves, would definitely not be noticed by the ordinary people in the house. Tonight, King Du is destined not to be lonely. Then, King Genies made a deal with concubine Shu. A transaction that can change the world. A deal to change the world. But when things came to a head, King Genies didn't want to do it anymore, so he chose to take the initiative and cancel the transaction. So how to cancel the transaction? It's very simple. If you kill one party to the transaction will be cancelled naturally. Although the commander-in-chief was transferred away from King Du. But King Genies was worried that there were experts around concubine Shu to help her. Therefore, in order to be absolutely sure, the person he sent to King Du to personally assassinate the Empress Dowager Shufei this time was an assassin at the poster level. 12th floor, owner. 12 men in black fell into the courtyard. My lord, I'm so hungry. Meow Meow glanced outside, and her faint beast eyes glowed green. Jewel sipped her index finger and looked at her master eagerly, as if she wanted to ask the same question as Meow Meow. Concubine Shu smiled slightly. Go ahead, be gentle. Don't disturb little Tai. Can I eat it? Jewel looked sick, with glistening saliva dripping from the corner of her mouth. Can. Meow Meow and Jewel happily opened the door and killed the 12 building owners outside. Daki and King Du. The generals are all outside the city, fighting to the death. One by one, the assassins carried out dimensionality reduction strikes against the last list and the last civil servants. The civil servants are purely civil servants and have no power to tie the chicken. The assassins in their Bodhisattva building were used to assassinate civil servants who had no fighting ability. Let alone being foolproof, there was not even the slightest suspense. One by one, assassins infiltrated into the homes of civil servants. The civil servants and courtiers were fast asleep in their rooms. Slept very soundly. An assassin came to the right Prime Minister's room. The tight defense is useless to the assassins of Bodhisattva Tower. The assassin opened the high-end curtain, and there was a person inside, wrapped in a quilt, breathing long and long. The knife fell, and the hot blood stained the sheets red. After confirming that the right Prime Minister in the bed was completely dead, the assassin simply cleaned up the scene and left, pretending that he had never been there. Kill one person with one knife and leave no trace for 10 miles. Just so chic and professional. They have received professional training and will not panic no matter what happens. What's more, there were no accidents tonight, it was incredibly smooth. This was the last move made by King Genies. Similar things happened in every corner of King Du. Kill. The 3 armies charged on the plains and engaged in melee. It was a dark night, with no light from the sun or the moon. The 300,000-strong army of King Genies was like a scourge, opening up the battle line and devouring everything. Compared with the army of King Genies. Even if the 2 armies of the king in the east and the 6th army of Dakian were combined together, they would not be enough to feed the king of Genies. Half an hour later, there were countless corpses on the plain, and the 6 armies of Dakian were retreating steadily. The commander led the army, looked at the sky above his head, and charged forward. When he swung his sword, the vertical and horizontal sword light cut dozens of Southern King's cavalry in a straight line in front of him, both men and horses, in half. Finally, the commander-in-chief's face was as dark as water, he was not interested in fighting, and he issued a retreat order. Back, back, back. No. After the death of the old General Shinwuo, Xia Xiaoman was ordered to temporarily take over the post of General Shinwuo. After the commander-in-chief issued the retreat order, Xia Xiaoman swung out her sword and frost fell from the sky. After forcing her to retreat from the battle line, she floated to the commander-in-chief in front of us. How can we retreat when our country is ruined and our family is destroyed? The commander-in-chief shouted in a deep voice, military orders are like mountains. No, Xia Xiaoman was not showing her temper. In fact, her 2 years of military life had made her grow a lot. She was no longer the messy eldest princess of the past. Xiaoxiaoman wiped off the blood that had not dried on his face and shook his head vigorously. Your Majesty, the East King and the South King are now restraining each other. We can only use the power of the East King's army to contain the South King's army during the melee. There is only a glimmer of hope. Military orders are coming. I say, retreat. The commander-in-chief gave a cold shout, his luck volleyed in the air, and his voice was heard hundreds of meters away in the army. Xiaoxiaoman and the commander were in a stalemate for a while. Although Xiaoxiaoman still wanted to stick to his own ideas, on the battlefield, the superior officer was overwhelming. The commander was the commander of the 6th Army. In terms of military rank, he was higher than Xiaoxiaoman. Level 1. His words carry more weight. When the commander's order was passed down with the help of flag orders and horn sounds, the Dacian sergeants who fought hard lost their fighting spirit, turned around and evacuated towards Qingdu. Xiaoxiaoman was condescending, looking at the large army of troops retreating in a panic and disorderly manner. She looked blankly at the soldiers below her who were like a swarm of ants, and suddenly she had the illusion that the situation is over. Right now. A bright light tore through the boundless night. The violent vibration caused the elite soldiers and generals on the battlefield to flip over. Sand and dust billowed, rising dozens of meters at the end of the beam. That's a beam of light. A beam of destruction. At the end of the light, Yilin put on the vest of the Apocalypse Assassin and held a 2-meter-long moon destroyer cannon with green smoke coming out of the barrel. I am coming. On the instantly silent battlefield, the thin figure in the sky smiled slightly. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 962. It's the Apocalypse Assassin. Help. I want to go home. Go home. The moon destroyer cannon tore the earth apart. Wherever the beam passed, it left a gully several miles long on the ground. The corpses in the ravine were charred black, and under the power of this cannon, they were instantly burned to ashes. So scary. The appearance of the Apocalypse Assassin is always accompanied by negative words such as fear, shock, and killing. When that beam of light tore through the battlefield, whether it was the East King's army or the South King's army, hundreds of people from the two entangled armies died under this cannon. Only Dacian's army, which retreated early, survived. Back, back, back. Quickly back. As soon as they saw the Apocalypse Assassin coming, Dacian's army retreated faster. Brother. Now that Lin Yi's identity was known to the world, Xiaoxiaoman stopped pretending and shouted the word senior brother into the sky. The cultivation of the Jindan monk was enough to make his voice spread across the battlefield like a loudspeaker. However, Lin Yi, who heard Xiaoxiaoman's call, seemed not to hear his junior sister's call. After firing a cannon, he stepped on the jet skateboard dropped towards the center of the fierce battle between the East King's army and the South King's army. Do not impulse. When the commander-in-chief saw Xiaoxiaoman preparing to take off on the spot to find his beloved senior brother, the commander-in-chief snorted coldly and said to Xiaoxiaoman, "He is no longer your senior brother, princess." "What do you mean?" Xiaoxiaoman became angry when she heard this. Her anger exploded in her chest. The commander-in-chief could be cruel to her or scold her, but he could never say anything wrong about her senior brother. No matter what senior brother did or how many people he killed, Xiaoxiaoman always firmly believed that senior brother Lin Yi must have his own reasons and purposes for doing what he did. In the past 2 years, Xiaoxiaoman was exhausted from fighting in all directions and had very little contact with Yilin. But Xiaoxiaoman knew very well that her senior brother had always been secretly helping her as an assassin of Tiankai, helping her to protect her younger brother Xiaojishan's empire. Snapped. The commander's eyes were like copper bells, and his voice was as sonorous as iron, full of undoubted power. His palms as big as cattail leaf fans pressed hard on Xiaoxiaoman's shoulder armor with such force that Xiaoxiaoman just floated off the ground. His feet were suddenly pushed into the soil, 3/3 of the time. The commander-in-chief stared at Xiaoxiaoman's panicked and hesitant eyes with bloodshot eyes, roaring like a beast, whether it was anger, excitement, or mixed with other inexplicable emotions. In short, Xiaoxiaoman was stunned and shocked by the commander's next words. The commander-in-chief said, "Are you going to trample on a man's determination? Leave quickly." About half a year ago. The commander-in-chief is as usual. In the Qingdu military camp, soldiers were trained and practiced in formation. After a day of training, the commander returned to his military tent with his sword in hand. What no one knew was that as soon as the commander-in-chief pulled down the curtain, he pulled out his knife. The wind of the knife extinguished the candle light in the tent and pointed at the swaying shadow in the corner of the military tent. "Humph, where are the rats hiding their heads and showing their tails? I'm sorry to meet you in this way. Maybe you have heard of my name, and my reputation is a little bad, but it doesn't matter. I believe we will have a pleasant conversation." A man with a thin face and pale skin emerged eerily from the shadows. "Are you going to trample on a man's determination?" The commander-in-chief shouted, suppressing Xiaoxiaoman with a voice that only the two of them could hear. "You." Looking at the always ruthless commander, with a rare complex expression in his bloodshot eyes, Xiaoxiaoman was stunned and vaguely understood something. "Good." Xiaoxiaoman seemed to understand. "It turns out you are such a senior brother. Hate. Why didn't you tell me that you and the commander secretly colluded?" Xiaoxiaoman made many plans for his senior brother. But at this moment, time was in a hurry, and Xiaoxiaoman did not dare to ask more questions. He chose to trust the commander and his senior brothers and command the remaining Dacian army to retreat towards Qingdu. The key point is to control the consumption of spiritual energy. And, breathe. In mid-air, Yilin silently muttered to herself, running her wind body. The cloud body wind body technique is currently one of Yilin's most suitable protective skills for use on the battlefield. Half of this skill is a skill that has been transformed by the rules of Zyle Garden and can be used by consuming spiritual energy value, while the other half, cloud body, is Yilin's Lin family's ancestral skill. After Yilin perfected this technique, or this skill, it has become a unique enhancement for herself. She can use spiritual energy to operate it or consume spiritual energy points to operate it. Not a big problem. The howling wind surrounded Yilin. When he suddenly landed in the center of the battlefield, a large area of the armored soldiers around him were blown away. As soon as he landed, a large clearing was cleared. The soldiers who were on their backs, whether they were from the South King's army or the East King's army, looked at the legendary man who landed in the center of the battlefield in horror. The strange mask brought about the deterrence is more terrifying than the legend says. With just one glance from this big devil, the legs of 100,000 soldiers became weak, their teeth chattered, and it was difficult for them to have any fighting spirit in their hearts. The benefits of low charm finally show up. Through the visor, Yilin's eyes fell on the faces of the young soldiers one by one, briefly making contact with their eyes. The moment their eyes met, Yilin understood what they were thinking, and also understood personally that she was a monster like a scourge in their eyes at this moment. A ruthless murderous monster. "Master, does Chu Chu want to take action?" Bai Chu Chu saw that his young master was surrounded by 100,000 soldiers. Of course, it could also be said that the young master was surrounded by 100,000 soldiers. No matter who surrounded whom, Bai Chu Chu saw that the situation was not right, and stood on Yilin's shoulder in a panic. Asked the young master if he needed to take action himself. "No, don't forget your mission." Yilin patted the cat's butt and smiled slightly. Then the moon-destroying cannon used for the opening ceremony. In the horrified eyes of everyone, Lin split the moon-destroying cannon into two pieces from the middle with a pop, and the two spanned the moon-destroying cannon. The revolver of the era appeared in Lin Yi's hand. Of course, at this moment, even a Barbie doll held in Lin Yi's hand was enough to be a deterrent. When the two revolvers were revealed, many soldiers shouted "Apocalypse Assassin reveals his magical weapon" and so on, dropped the weapons in their hands, turned around and ran away. Wandering arms. Psychic bullets loaded. Snapshot. Bang 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 bang. Yilin's feet were like stepping on a skateboard, and her figure was as gentle as a swallow, sliding into the military formation. The two pistols spit out dazzling tongues of fire, shining brightly in the dark night like bright fireflies disappearing. Snort. Lin Yi, hand over the Empress treasure. When Lin Yi personally left the stage, the monks in the two armies who had been paddling in the water waiting for Lin Yi to appear naturally couldn't help it anymore. They flew high and took action suddenly. In the blink of an eye, there are hundreds of monks who come from unknown places, with both righteousness and magic. On the one hand, they want to do justice for heaven, and on the other hand, they want to kill people and seize treasures. Two completely different reasons are brewing the same thing at this moment. Kind of result. That is, kill Lin Yi. Be careful with his exploding flying swords. Be careful if he sacrifices the Empress's treasure. Humph, the Empress's treasure is hugely consumed, how can it be used just as it is said to be? The monks have their own ideas, which seem to be very effective, but are not very effective. In this part of killing and seizing treasures that everyone loves to see, no one wants to be the cannon fodder of the tragedy. Everyone wants to be the lucky one who makes the last hit, hoping to find the treasure of the Empress that they have longed for from Lin Yi's corpse. As for how to leave this place after obtaining the Empress's treasure, it is not something they can consider now. Faced with a group of monks attacking from high altitude, they have been chasing Yilin's ass for more than half a year, and even chased her feelings. As soon as Yilin looked at the movements of such and such, he could probably recognize that this was the person he had blown up with so many flying swords on a certain day and was lucky enough to survive. Now when she saw her old acquaintance approaching, Yilin calmly stretched out her hand forward with her fingers slightly bent. Careful! He's going to cast an explosive spell. Everyone disperse. Don't keep your trump card, use your trump card to save your life. Keep the green mountains here, don't be afraid of leaving no treasures behind. When the monks took action at the same time, the soldiers on the periphery were already frightened by the terrifying scene in front of them. This group of monks usually come and go in the wind and clouds, but you may not encounter one in a few years. Now, because of this Lin Yi, they all gathered on the battlefield, as if they were treating Lin Yi as the big devil in the Suanman world. The body-protecting light of different colors lights up, and the colorful light shines like a rainbow in the dark night. Everyone consciously used their life-saving trump card and did not dare to be careless in front of this evil beast. If Lin Yi was to blow them up, it would be fine if they were killed. They would be regarded as Suanman martyrs. If they could not be killed, they would be blown up. With a disgraced face, I will be really embarrassed to see people in the circle from now on. Night dire. Rumble. What everyone didn't expect was that when Lin Yi stretched out his hand, it was not an explosive spell. Behind Lin Yi, strange streams of light gathered together into a tall armor. With the roar of the engine and the vibration of the exhaust pipe, the long-lost Cybertronian gentleman crossed over. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 963. Chinese King's Military Camp. Xiaxin Chen, Ni Bodhisattva, and the old man were sipping tea. Ni Bodhisattva felt very nervous and did not dare to express his anger. The pressure this old gentleman put on him was extraordinary. It was roughly estimated that his cultivation level was at least one level higher than his. He is already a Yuanying realm monk. If he is 1 or 2 realms higher, what is that? Out of body period. Distraction period. Even, the tribulation period. His. A monk in the tribulation period. In today's world, monks in the tribulation stage can be called semi-immortals. A half-immortal who is only half a foot away from becoming an immortal. A half-step immortal. A true immortal is the realm of the Kiju Empress, who looks down upon the world and is invincible. Since the Empress Kiju, immortals have become extinct, and no one can successfully ascend, so half-immortals have also become invincible. Far away. The sounds of wailing, explosions, clashing weapons, and fighting are endless. Suddenly, the sound stopped for a moment. King Genies suddenly stopped shaking the cup, and the tea in the cup suddenly stopped shaking and ripples appeared in circles. He came. The old gentleman squinted his eyes and said. The clay bodhisattva cupped his hands and said, "Is it possible that Linyi still bothers the old gentleman to take action?" "No, Linyi is nothing to be afraid of. What I'm afraid of is the Empress treasure that he carries." The old man chuckled, seemingly not caring about saying what he was fearful of. He slowly stood up and said, the rickety back straightened little by little, making a snapping sound. 3,000 years ago, Mr. Zhang shot one man at a time. He was hostile to the demons and Buddhas in the 3 realms, and eventually died in the Black Wind and Sand Sea. And according to the disciples of my sect, the Empress's treasure that Linyi is holding is the treasured spear that Zhang Laomo owned back then. Hiss. The clay bodhisattva inhales. I will stretch my muscles and bones and retrieve the treasured spear. The old gentleman smiled slightly, lifted his legs and walked outside the military tent. But just when the old man was about to step out of the military tent, the wrinkles on his face suddenly tightened. A trace of doubt flashed deep in the old man's cloudy old eyes. He couldn't help but look up and said quietly, "This Ling Xiao sword in tent, could it be that the heavenly sword sect still wants to protect him when it reaches this point?" At the same time, inside Kingdu, all the lights went out and the city was dark. Lots of rats, noisy. The old woman at the bun shop finally waited until her goddaughter Xiu'er was asleep. She placed various restrictions in the bun shop to ensure that Xiu'er was safe before slowly stepping out of the shop. As the old woman walked, the knuckles of her 5 fingers swelled inch by inch, from a pair of skinny little palms to 5 ferocious claws like weapons made of fine steel. As the old woman moved her knuckles, there was a faint sound of thunder in her hands. I've seen Protector Thunder. Li Qianqian, who had been waiting outside the shop all night, finally waited for Protector Lei to walk out and immediately greeted him, not daring to delay. In fact, she was also very puzzled. These days, she saw with her own eyes that the 2 guardians of Feng Lei treated that ordinary secular girl as their own daughter, and even taught Xiu'er what she had learned throughout her life, both overtly and secretly. This made Li Qianqian jealous, wishing that she could replace Xiu'er and become the goddaughter of Protector Feng Lei. Not to mention being the goddaughter of Protector Feng Lei, Li Qianqian was extremely happy to be her own daughter. They are the same people, but they have different fates. Li Qianqian sighed in her heart and stepped forward to report, "Dragon Protector Lei, the disciples in front sent back news that Linyi appeared on the battlefield hundreds of miles away and was massacring. Tisk, Linyi, it's a pity that he lost a good seedling." The old woman protecting the law was laughing hoarsely, her laughter was sinister and heart-chilling. Li Qianqian is a senior disciple of the demon sect and is deeply in tune with the temperament of the seniors of the demon section. Protector Lei said this, indicating that he planned to take action against Linyi. Why? Li Qianqian stared and couldn't help but ask her doubts. In her opinion, once the identity of such a disciple, even a spy, is exposed, he can be saved if he can. In the future, he may be able to add a capable general to the Meruo temple. How could you give up such a talent so easily? It shouldn't be. Madness. Protector Lei suddenly shouted loudly, and his voice was like thunder, exploding in Li Qianqian's ears. Buzz. Li Qianqian felt stars rising in front of her eyes, making her dizzy. When she came back to her senses, hot and slippery blood dripped from her ears and wet her snow-white neck. Just one angry shout has such power. Li Qianqian was horrified, and her soul came out. She was so frightened that she immediately knelt on the ground. Disciple is stupid. Please forgive me, Protector Lei. Humph. Although the person from the Tianjian sect is already at the end of her powerful crossbow, she holds the Empress treasure in her hand. Even at the end of her powerful crossbow, she can annihilate mountains and rivers with a snap of her fingers. Her strength is unfathomable and must not be underestimated. And now, Amologo, Your Excellency has something important to do and is in retreat to comprehend the treasure. If not, how could you have made that ridiculous agreement with Yan Fuzhou and Tianjian sect thousands of years ago? Ultimate treasure. This was the first time that Li Qianqian had heard of these secrets from many years ago. As soon as she subconsciously repeated the two words, she was so frightened that she quickly closed her mouth and lowered her head, pretending that she did not hear. Humph, so if Lin Yi hadn't done such a thing, I might have really thought that Lin Yi was the one who broke into the Tianjian sect many years ago. But after Lin Yi did such a deed, I thought, it may be very slim. If that person is really Lin Yi, how can he tolerate himself being reduced to the unbearable situation he is in now? When Li Qianqian heard this, she understood and felt her face red and hot. The implication of Protector Lei's words was that he clearly believed that Lin Yi was not from Malogo Palace at all. Then the question arises. If Lin Yi is not the one, then she followed Lin Yi and left the Tianjian section after being exposed. She took the initiative to leave the Tianjian sect to confirm her identity as a spy. Wouldn't it have made her lonely? In this way, will the elders in the Mara Hall punish her for incompetence in doing things? Thinking of this, Li Qianqian was filled with anger, hatred, and fear, and her delicate body lying on the ground trembled slightly. Humph, I don't blame you for that. Lin Yi is very cunning. Maybe he attacked Chao Rushuan in the Black Wind Sand Sea Cave to seize the Empress's treasure. I didn't expect you to misunderstand. But this is not a thing. No matter what the bad thing is, the Empress treasure is 100 times better in his hands than in the hands of the Heavenly Sword section. As he spoke, Protector Lei lifted up Li Qianqian with his right hand. She took Li Qianqian and flew into the night sky. She said hoarsely, now that Lin Yi has taken the initiative to enter the urn, what we have to do is to be cunning there. When Lin Yi has no chance of escaping, he must recover the Empress's treasure before others do. What the old woman said clearly meant that the immortal killing spear that Lin Yi found in the Black Wind and Sand Sea was the treasure of her Malogo Palace, and now it is just returned to its original owner. Along the way from the center of the battlefield to Qingdu, the imperial army retreated in a mighty manner. No one knew about the secret meeting between the commander-in-chief and Lin Yi except him. Otherwise it wouldn't be called a secret meeting. Sergeant de Gan, including the other 5 generals, all thought that Lin Yi was a murderous devil. For the first time in their lives, the soldiers under their command felt from the bottom of their hearts that this retreat was such a wise decision. Xia Xiaoman rode a war horse and followed the army, turning back every 10 steps. She believed that senior brother Lin Yi wanted to risk his own life and annihilate all the enemies, so he secretly negotiated with the commander-in-chief and retreated at the critical moment, so that Daqian's army could retain its strength and kill a counterattack if necessary. At least, that's what Xia Xiaoman thinks at this moment. Logically speaking, this seems like an idea that senior brother Lin Yi can come up with. Senior brother Lin Yi's thoughts are always a little higher than hers. In the center of the battlefield, Lin Yi transformed into a demon and killed countless people. A strange jet-black armor with spiked tires on the back spinning crazily, tearing the soldiers along the way into pieces during the rush. Countless arrows and weapons fell on the armored man's body, but they were all scratched. Apart from the sound of thumping and making the wailing and strangely screaming armored man more and more excited, there was no other use. This iron beats loneliness. Yilin throughout the night dire, and at that moment, after attracting everyone's attention, he activated shadow following and shadow killing again to sneak into the ground. The dark night is Lin Yi's protective color. Tonight is Lin Yi's night. In the shadow. I told you to read more, but you haven't read, yet you don't understand such a simple thing as tune the tiger away from the mountain? Tisk, you are uneducated, what a shame. Yilin transformed into a shadow and stayed with the shadows. As if entering an uninhabited land, he drove straight in and sneaked into the heart of the Eastern King's army. In the Dongwang army camp, bright torches were lit and formed a circle. Hundreds of nervous-looking soldiers, holding torches, squeezed the frightened king of the East into the center with 2 pieces of bread sandwiched with cheese. The king in the East. Yilin approached through the shadows and looked at King Zedong like he was looking at a corpse. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 964. When Lin Yi appeared on the battlefield as an apocalypse assassin. There is not much difference between being guarded by one person and being surrounded by hundreds of people. The monks who might, maybe, seemingly, should have a chance to discover Yilin in a stealth state were all attracted to the center of the battlefield in the distance by Yilin's high-profile opening. In Yilin's eyes, the Zedong king, who was wearing a special armor with only 3 holes for his eyes and nostrils exposed from head to toe, was actually not much different from a stripped and washed little lamb. The only difference is that, worn or not, free method deconstruction. Yilin easily passed through the crowd and arrived behind King Zedong silently. Yilin saw a white light shining on his palm, and a faint shadow of a throne flashed behind him. He pressed his hand on the head of the armored turtle of King Zedong. No, the head of the armored turtle, forget it, it's the same. Analyze, calculate, decompose. The armor made of fine steel was decomposed and peeled off piece by piece. King Zedong felt his heavy head light up intuitively. Before he could experience the pleasure of pushing away the clouds and seeing the blue sky, he felt a cold hand gently pressing on the top of his head. My neck felt cold. Goo goo goo. A large amount of hot blood poured into the trachea, and King Zedong coughed violently. This was Yilin's familiar and long-lost throat-slitting technique. The dog head of the Eastern King was taken away by the apocalypse assassin. Yilin let out a loud roar, flew up, and walked away with a swagger as a group of soldiers were stunned and in pain. The king of Zedong is dead. Died. Died inexplicably. Died suddenly. www. On the side of the Eastern King's army, the horn soldiers, who were deeply familiar with the art of reporting news, blew the 3 long and 2 short horn sounds. The long and long sound, like the sound of a suana, resounded throughout the battlefield. Although the situation on the battlefield is chaotic, people are stepping on others, squeezing others, and killing others. But one obvious benefit is that both good and bad things spread quickly. Once the horn sounds, the soldiers in front will react instantly and automatically translate the horn sound into corresponding information in their minds. Prison of the Eastern King. Prince Dong is dead. Some people have died, but he is still alive. Mr. Dong Wanjai has always lived in my heart. Prince Dong's death must be meaningful. Prince Dong will have no regrets in this life even if he dies. Due to the death of the resident king, word spread throughout the battlefield. The Dongwang army was in chaos. The moment the news of the death of King Zedong spread throughout the battlefield, every soldier in the East King's army lost their will to fight. Because at this moment, they have no reason to continue fighting. Defeated, like a mountain falling. On the contrary, the momentum of the Chinese king's side surged. Even without the general's flag order, facing the East King's army that fled the battlefield in embarrassment and was defeated, they raised their reins as if they were beaten to death, and stepped out with messy horsehooves in a rhythmic morning song. Charge forward and kill. Kill. Slaughter all the Dongwang pigs. Prince Nan is the destiny. Prince Nan is invincible. Prince Nan is unparalleled. On the battlefield, both sides fight for momentum, slogans, and strength. On the battlefield, under the premise that there is no huge disparity between the enemy and ourselves, spiritual power is the first-order weapon. Not to mention, the Eastern King's army had lost one head in terms of number of troops, and its defeat was certain. No one noticed. In other words, no one saw it at all. There is a cloud in the dark sky. A dark cloud that blends in with the color of the night. Dark clouds covered the sky, and suddenly, a big hole silently opened in the middle of the dark clouds. It was like someone, living in the clouds, stabbed a sword through the sky. In the cloud cave, wind and clouds gathered, and a huge cloud sword hung in the center of the cloud cave, almost ready to fall. In the Chinese king's military camp, the battle report came. The king in the east fell. King Jenny's tea-making hand trembled slightly. He rubbed the jade ring on his thumb vigorously, his brows twitching on both sides. Although it was an expected victory, it came too quickly and too easily. Xia Xin Chen, won. In the battle between the four kings, he, Xia Xin Chen, has already won. The king of Zhenbei, no, has now become the western prince entrenched in the western regions. The prodigal dog is no longer something to be afraid of. Now, in Qingdu, the old officials loyal to the late emperor have been purged. At this moment, Qingdu is an empty city. An empty city, waiting for the arrival of the right man. He, the king of Chinese, is destined to sweep away all enemies and step onto the throne of the human emperor that should belong to him. I, Xia Xin Chen, am the true emperor. Hee, ha 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 ha. At first, Xia Xin Chen suppressed his laughter in the military tent. But then I couldn't bear it anymore, and I laughed louder and happier. In this world, no one can stop him from taking that position. Xia Xingchen's laughter came from the tent. Outside the account, the old gentleman frowned, with a hint of disdain deep in his eyes. So what about the throne of the human emperor, so what about the destined emperor? If it were not to kill the destined emperor, it would be too much of an interference. As the protector of the demon palace, he could kill him at will, and even buy one and get one free. The layout is too small. Only immortality is the lifelong pursuit of monks. The old Mr. Feng protector showed his disdain at the cheerful laughter of King Jenny's in the tent. He stared solemnly at the hazy cloud sword in the sky and said softly, "The man from the heavenly sword sect cannot leave the hanging immortal island, and such a condensed sword intention penetrates the sky and the earth. Before the sword intention comes out, people can't help but feel fear. This person clearly came here in his true form. After all, who is it? When things come to a head, you still use this method to protect Lin Yi." At the same time, Li Qianqian and the Thunder Protector of Maluo Palace, one old and one young, one big and one small, their bodies like flowing light, were flying towards the center of the battlefield at an altitude of 1,000 meters. Not good. Suddenly, Protector Lei stopped abruptly, his pupils shrank sharply, and he stared at the dark sky in the distance. Li Qianqian almost bumped into Protector Lei's back, but luckily he didn't hit him. If he did, Protector Lei would be fine, but Li Qianqian's big body might be crushed and she wouldn't be able to get it back even if she was rubbed. She stopped behind Protector Lei with her sword, heard Protector Lei talking to himself, and asked cautiously, "Guardian Lei, what's wrong?" The old woman's eyes flickered and she pointed to the dark sky in the distance. "There, someone is warning us with the supreme sword intention." Warn. His supreme sword intent has reached the realm of transformation. Under the control of that person, Yuanying monks, and above, the higher the cultivation level, the more terrifying the sword intent can be perceived. He is warning those above the nascent soul realm, don't interfere. If anyone goes, he will die. It's the supreme leader of Tianjian sect. The Supreme Sword intention has reached the realm of transformation. Protector Lei's description made Li Qianqian think of the so-called invincible woman from Tianjian sect for the first time. Humph, no matter whether the supreme head of the Heavenly Sword sect comes or not, if she does come, if my wife and I end up easily, we will arouse that person's boundless anger. Even an old man is not 100% sure about what to do next. That man's sword. Even if that man is not the supreme sect leader himself, he is still a figure almost on par with that man from the Tianjian sect. Oh, no wonder Master MaleProtagonist told us to not take the initiative to cause conflicts with the Tianjian sect after retreating. The dispute over the door, no wonder, no wonder. The Empress's treasure. Hey, the old woman's eyes rolled, she opened her mouth and spat out, and a small black sword as big as a palm came out from the tip of her tongue and floated towards Li Qianqian. Since that person won't let us end, as a golden core cultivator, that person claims to be a master of righteousness and will not easily embarrass the juniors. You only need to use the old magic weapon to face Lin Yi. The old woman laughed, her cloudy eyes flashed brightly, she clenched her 5 fingers and moved them up and down, making a stab gesture. Go, the old woman smiled, if you can kill Lin Yi and seize the Empress's treasure, the old man and his wife will make the decision and jointly recommend you to Lord MaleProtagonist, so that you can become the saint of the MaleProtagonist temple that has been vacant for many years. Yes. Disciple, obey. Li Qianqian took the small black sword with an expression of joy, and without saying a word, she took the order and rushed towards the center of the battlefield. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xuexi. Chapter 965. The overall situation is decided. The king of Genies slowly stepped out of the military tent. He looked outside the door and looked up at the sky. The motionless old gentleman cupped his hands and said, "Old sir, please follow me to King Du." Ah! When Protector Feng heard King Genies' request, he rarely refused. When he turned around, he had put on a kind face, then let me have a closer look at the vision of the prince's ascension to the throne, and absorb a little bit of the human emperor's ascension to the throne. A leak of luck. Protector Feng's words were not flattery. He also disdained flattery. Even if the Qigong masters of this era are not specialized in one skill, they can still read some aspects of their faces. After the death of King Zedong, Genies Wang's face was full of light. When he stepped out, the breeze suddenly stopped. If there was no luck, this was clearly a sign of luck. Before Protector Feng saw that King Genies' face was ordinary, but in the blink of an eye, there was a slight bulge in the center of King Genies' square forehead, which was clearly recorded in history books as the face of a sun-horned dragon and the appearance of an emperor. Those who compete for the world will die, become decadent, and become useless. This destiny naturally falls on the King of Genies. The trend is achieved. The overall situation is decided. Luck may sound illusory, but for a special group of Qi refiners who compete with God and seek immortality, they believe in this thing the most. Although the demon Luo Dianfeng Dharma Protector did not have the final say in this battle between the human emperor and the emperor, if he raised his hand a little and protected the key points, he might be able to alleviate some of the murderous karma in the future catastrophe. Enter the realm of immortality. It's easy work, why not do it? The king stationed in the east is dead, and the remaining troops are like ants bursting through a dike. The king of Genies never expected that Lin Yi would be so powerful. He had obviously tried his best to kill Lin Yi, but at the last moment, Lin Yi broke into the enemy's formation and took the garrison. The Eastern King's dog's fate. Perhaps this is God's will. On normal days, the cautious and suspicious King Genies might have thought about whether there was any fraud involved. But now, he can't think of it. It is obvious that the king stationed in the east died and the army of the East King was defeated. No matter how deceitful he is, can he still deceive Xiaoxing Chen and wipe out the whole world? Sir, it's time to take action. Xiaoxing Chen said to Ni Bodhisattva. Good. Upon hearing this, the clay bodhisattva responded, smiling and snapping his fingers in the darkness. From the darkness, an assassin, wrapped in black robes and whose body shape is somewhat similar to that of the Apocalypse assassin, wears a specially made mask that is almost indistinguishable from the pale bone face of the Apocalypse assassin. Through the darkness, he walks toward the military camp where Xiaojishan is located. Xiaojishan's military camp was heavily protected by a group of elite soldiers. They are all the confidants of King Genies, the confidants of his confidants. What is a confidant? He is a dead man who is willing to live and die for King Genies. Several confidants knelt in front of the tent, with blazing fire in their eyes, and shouted in unison to the military tent where Xiaojishan was. The traitors have been defeated, and the emperor's side has been suppressed. Please invite Emperor Jishan to come out of the camp. Welcome Emperor Jishan. Welcome Emperor Jishan. The existence of Xiaojishan. For many people in Genies Wangjun, it has always been a secret. Many people don't even know that Xiaojishan left Qingdu a few years ago and came here to be a puppet emperor in name only. Inside the dark military tent, there was no light. Xiaojishan curled up in the darkness and shivered slightly. He is afraid. He was so scared. He was really scared. The voices of several people kept echoing in his mind, like a song. A desperate song. Childhood. Ji-er, if you become the emperor, what will you do? Father, how about playing with Ji-er? Do you know that this seemingly peaceful place is actually covered in abscesses and riddled with holes? Ji-er doesn't understand. Ahem, in the north, King Genbei was proud of his achievements and his troops, and he never looked down upon his father. In the east, the city of the king stationed in the east was rich and fertile, and his treasure house was as rich as any other country, but he never looked down upon him. Paying national taxes, using all kinds of excuses to shirk, in the west, King Pingzi seems to be keeping his duties, but in fact he is wildly ambitious, using the Suanman Qingluan tree to secretly communicate with the enemy. In the south, Xiaoxing Chen, your uncle, my father was ashamed of him back then. Let him now become a tiger in the mountains, entrenched in the south. If his father could be cruel back then, it's a pity that success depends on family ties, and failure depends on family ties. Oh, no matter how prosperous this great force is, it will not last more than 20 years. Ji-er doesn't understand. Father, can we go play ball? Well. This conversation, which was not on the same channel at all, made Emperor Xiaoyuan exhausted mentally and physically. Xiaojishan overheard his father and mother talking in low voices in the room. If you want Daqian Zhongshan to live for 100 years, or even longer, there is only one way, only way. Unfortunately, if you sacrifice Ji-er in order to extend the life of Daqian Zhongshan, how could I do such a thing? But, this country has been passed down to you by the ancestors of the Xia family. Are you really willing to watch Daqian be destroyed? I don't want to. Why not? Let Ji-er make his own choice. SHH. Ji-er is here. Ji-er, have you really made up your mind? Your father once left a message in the past. Although he has arranged everything, if you don't want to, just go to Ping'an Temple to become a monk, remain anonymous, and give up your country. Your father, even if he is under Jiquan, will not blame you for a word. Mother Queen Mother, Ji-er has made up her mind. It's a pity that you are destined to only sit on this imperial throne for 20 years. That's enough. The country is not important. The people are the cornerstone of the Xia family's country. But if you go to the south and go to your uncle, everything will be irreversible. This is how fate should be. If my father's arrangement can keep the Xia family alive for another 100 years, Ji-er will have no regrets. Silly boy. Mother Queen Mother, is what you see in the heavenly book true? If you believe it, it's true. He, that Miss Xiaoman, she is really majestic. 4 years ago, Xiaojishan left Qingdu and came to Jingnan city. Concubine Shu, the current Empress Dowager, once asked Xiaojishan a question on the road. At that time, Xiaojishan didn't know how to answer. Are you willing to hold your head high and really be the leader of the country, or are you willing to do nothing in this life, hide your name, and live an ignoble existence? In the former, you may follow the path arranged by the late emperor in advance, but in the latter, you can longevity. In the dark military tent, the shouts of welcome Emperor Ji Sheng outside were like reminder notes, so harsh and noisy. But as he listened, the harsh call suddenly became more beautiful in Xiaojishan's ears. He slowly straightened up his crooked back, little by little, with all his strength. Finally, Xiaojishan straightened his back like a gun standing on the battlefield. Xiaojishan raised his head and stepped out of the military tent. When the confidants of King Geniz called out Xiaojishan's imperial title, the soldiers and generals of the South King's army who were ready in the military camp were already stunned. Why was Emperor Jishan, the emperor of the dynasty, in the military tent of King Geniz? Why? So in the battle between King Geniz, which one was fought? I don't understand. Although thousands of soldiers and generals could not understand the situation, when Xiaojishan walked out, they still subconsciously knelt on the ground and shouted, "Long live my emperor, long live, long live, long live." Thousands of soldiers knelt down in groups. Viewed from a height, it looked like a field of wheat being cut down, spectacular and neat. The shouts of unity were deafening and resounded through the sky. When those confidants saw Xiaojishan walking out of the military tent, they shouted again. Congratulations to Emperor Ji Sheng. Prince Nan is so brave that he has put down the rebellion. Congratulations to Emperor Ji Sheng. Prince Nan is so brave that he has put down the rebellion. The atmosphere at the scene is a very subtle thing. If one person shouts, others will follow him. If several people shout, more people will follow him. Just like a live concert, maybe no one can sing, but when they shout along with the rhythm, the overall effect will be like everyone knowing the lyrics of the song by heart. Such is the case at this moment. Thousands of people chanted. Breathing and breathing, the words became, Prince Nan is brave and invincible. Prince Nan is invincible. Xiaojishan looked at the scene of thousands of people kneeling and took a deep breath. Suddenly, he puffed up his chest and shouted with all his strength, I am the 14th generation leader of the Daqian dynasty, Xiaojishan. Poof. Just when Xiaojishan finished saying this, a sharp knife was stabbed into Xiaojishan's back and out of his heart. My lord, it's over. The mysterious apocalypse assassin appeared, killed Emperor Ji Sheng, caused a scene in the military camp, and killed several of King Geniz's confidants before leaving. The entire process from Emperor Ji Sheng's appearance to being assassinated in public took less than a minute. In that short minute, the entire Nanwang army camp and the audience were filled with emotions ranging from sadness to joy. The emperor falls. This vast country is ownerless. When King Geniz ascended the throne of the emperor, everyone would say this, Xia Xin Chen, as the emperor's uncle, used the power of thunder to put down the rebellion of the three kings. In the end, because the enemy was too cunning, the apocalypse assassin killed the emperor. And he, Xia Xin Chen, as the last male bloodline of the Xia royal family, naturally ascends to the throne of God. Destiny belongs to emotion and reason. Perfect. This vigorous farce sweeping across Dongsheng divine continent should end here. King Geniz got on his horse and headed west. There was an empty city waiting for him to capture it. Before traveling, King Geniz deliberately put on a luxurious dragon robe, a golden crown on his head, dragon-patterned boots on his feet, and combed his hair like a boss. Today is different from the past. In the past, he was Prince Nan. Now, he is about to ascend the throne of the human emperor, the Stardust Emperor. Set off. The king of Geniz is wearing a robe and a crown, and he is undoubtedly the emperor's treasure. I saw him looking sad, riding on a war horse, in front of the 300,000 troops of King Geniz. He looked sad, raised his long sleeves, and pointed at Kingdu in the distance. For my good nephew, take back this vast country. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 966. The overall situation is decided. The incident of Xiaojishan was mercilessly tortured by Tiankai assassins spread throughout the entire army in a very short period of time. The king of Geniz rushed to Kingdu with his army, beaming with joy. Traveling all night, the news spread throughout the southern king's 300,000 strong army. Even intentionally, this matter is spreading to the whole world at a terrifying speed. When the sun rises tomorrow, the reputation of the apocalypse assassin will once again be elevated to the level of omniscience. Kill the king. Kill the emperor. Do no evil. Kill no one. The crime deserves death. Unfortunately, if Xiaoxin Chen didn't have the protection of Maluo Dianfeng, he wouldn't have the confidence to kill the apocalypse assassin in a one-on-one duel in full view of everyone. Otherwise, his reputation will be pushed to an incomparable level that can only be matched by the founding emperor of Dakian at the moment he killed the apocalypse assassin with his own hands. Pity. 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 On horseback, King Geniz had a sullen face, feeling both pain and happiness. A perfect plan, but because of his lack of personal strength and because Lin Yi exceeded expectations, the final result was not so perfect. But, this is enough. The ending is perfect, but the process is not perfect, and he can accept it. But what he didn't understand was that with the strength of the Wind Protector, he could easily kill Lin Yi, who only had the cultivation level of the Golden Core realm. But why didn't Protector Feng take action? Could it be that there are some scruples? With this idea in mind, King Geniz went to Kingdu. In the messy military camp, Xiaojishan's body was simply buried. At the place where the leader of Dakian kingdom died, there was a simple earthen mound. King Geniz told the soldiers at that time that when the country was stabilized, it would be time to welcome the late emperor back to the imperial mausoleum. Yes, Xiaojishan became the first emperor. Yilin was always nearby after killing the queen in East. But he didn't dare approach. Next to King Geniz, there was a person with an aura so terrifying that it was hard to predict. According to the strength of qi refiners in this world, that person's strength is at least at the level of the Tianjian sect elders, or even higher. Yilin didn't dare to step forward and only dared to watch from a distance. Within a safe distance, Yilin had the confidence to escape at any time. After all, he has quite a few life-saving skills. He can die, but in this life, he must not die without any meaning. When it was confirmed that King Geniz's army was completely gone, Yilin stayed alert and came here. He is truly a true hero. Yilin stopped in front of the mound, looked at the lonely grave in the field, and observed a few seconds of silence. In Xiaojishan's life, he proclaimed himself emperor at a young age. From beginning to end, except for inheriting the title of emperor from the late emperor, he had no experience that could be called political achievements. Even if the historians don't write it and the ministers don't tell it, people all over the world know that the imperial concubine is taking care of the government, and the memorials are reviewed by the concubine Shu in Chang'an Palace. But at the end of his life, he straightened his spine and used his own life to interpret what it means to be an emperor. In the end, he finally gained the responsibility and consciousness of an emperor. What about you, junior sister, are you ready to awaken? When Lin Yi stopped, figures came from afar. Different colors of light reflected the dark sky in colorful colors. Yilin looked up at the sky and watched calmly as figures appeared in the sky. At the head of the group was a fat man with a stout figure. He was sullen, and the glimmer of light around his body was distorted, as if it was a world of its own. Evil disciple Lin Yi. Hurry up and capture him, and return to the heavenly sword sect to be punished. Behind Bai Tianxin, followed a large group of disciples from the Discipline Mountain. They were like a club patrolling, maintaining the formation of flying swords taking off collectively, very domineering. Among them, Yilin saw the figure of Jian Nanshan. Yilin squinted his eyes and saw that Jian Nanshan was looking anxious, holding the nail that Yilin had given him, and frantically making a call gesture to Yilin from a distance, signaling Yilin to answer the call quickly. Since the Yilin operation, he has never answered the call between Jian Nanshan and his junior sister. Lin Yi has long since become a public enemy of Suanmen. He has committed heinous crimes and interfered with the rise and fall of secular dynasties. This is no longer your Tianjian sect's private matter. If Lin Yi does not die, none of us in Suanmen will be allowed to do so in the future. Peaceful. A piece of bright red clouds flew quickly from the other side of the sky. At the moment when the red cloud appeared, the sky was dyed with the color of fire. As the red cloud appeared, the cool night sky and the slightly cool air became unbearably hot, making people feel dry in the mouth. It's the Suanmen burning sky valley. Look at the sky on the other side. A huge sword that was dozens of meters long was coming towards this direction, accompanied by the fierce sound of wind. If you look closely, you will see that the huge sword in the air is made up of countless small flying swords. At this moment, the giant sword is like a bus that gets on as soon as possible. There are dozens of green-robed monks standing on it. Behind each green-robed monk, there is a broadsword box on his back. It's the sword-making villa. In the past 6 months of chasing Lin Yi, Fenchen Valley and Zhejian Villa have all contributed a lot, making Yilin not lonely during the 6 months of pursuit and escape. Yilin looked at the figures of several people from a distance and vaguely recognized many old acquaintances. He raised his hand and lightly touched his face with his fingers. The pale bone armor quickly shrunk, and the laughing mask retracted on his forehead, turning into a seemingly ordinary piece of dead skin. Looking at Lin Yi, who showed his true face again, Jian Nanshan felt a shock all over in mid-air. He was so shocked by Lin Yi's face that he couldn't speak anymore. He almost lost his grip on the double-deck nail that he held tightly in his hand. Falling to the ground. Ever since Yilin traveled around Dakian as an apocalypse assassin / the two brothers never met seriously again. At the beginning, we occasionally had phone calls. But later, no matter how Jian Nanshan called, Yilin never responded. If it weren't for the fact that more and more rumors about apocalypse assassins were spreading throughout Dakian, Jian Nanshan might have thought that something bad had happened to junior brother Lin Yi. Now, when Yilin takes off his disguise and reveals his skinny, pale, and sickly face, Jian Nanshan is completely different from the high-spirited junior brother Lin Yi in his memory. At this time, Yilin was seriously ill. With the talent blessing of Jealous Wizard, there were gains and losses. While his understanding was full, he also got debuffs. This illness came like a mountain, and it came to fruition with great success. Illness can be late, but it will never be absent. Once it comes, it will be very cruel and directly push Yilin to the road of death. Yilin has thought through a lot of things at this moment. He knows that completing the main mission left by Xiao 11 cannot be completed in a lifetime. Xiao 11 once left a message on one of the wordless monuments. Here, she left Yilin a long time. A long enough time for Yilin to achieve herself. There isn't much time left in this life, and Yilin doesn't want to die in vain, so she wants to do something. Something meaningful. More and more monks arrived on the scene. Yilin asked Feng Qingtong to release the news in advance, saying that Lin Yi planned to assassinate the 4 kings and the current Emperor Dakian, so that the emperor would change hands. The monks heard the news and took action, and the whole army attacked. Due to various causes and arrangements, they gathered here tonight. Fenchen Valley, Ping'an Temple, Zhejian Villa, Tianjianmen, Suanmen Loose Cultivator. Everyone who could come came, but those who couldn't came either hid in secret or didn't bother to participate in this matter. Yilin is a traitor to the Tianjian sect, and Bai Taixin leads a group of disciples from the Discipline Mountain to capture Lin Yi. From a logical point of view, there is nothing wrong with this. No. Brother Lin. Among the group of people at Ping'an Temple, Zen Master Tianxin was sitting on a huge wooden fish. He looked at Lin Yi from a distance with a helpless look. Amitabha. Zen Master Tianxin said. No, I don't believe Brother Lin is such a person. Wang Xiaohu never believed that the assassin of Tiankai was Lin Yi. No matter how exaggerated or magical the world is, in Wang Xiaohu's heart, Lin Yi will always be the ignorant boy who stepped out of Qingyu village with him many years ago and determined to make a career in the world. Haha, cough, 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 Xiaohu, you have grown up. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Yilin smiled slightly, and the voice came out. In front of Jian Nanchun and Wang Xiaohu, he took out the double pin nail that the two usually used to communicate, threw it at his feet, and took a step forward. Snapped. With the stamp of his foot, the nails shattered into pieces. This kick seemed to break the connection between Lin Yi and Wang Xiaohu, Lin Yi and Jian Nanchun, and the long-term relationship. The sky was filled with monks, magic weapons, and strange phenomena in the sky, surrounding Lin Yi. Lin Yuan seemed to have become a powerful enemy hated by the world, alone, challenging the monks all over the world. Under the invisible threat, the nascent soul cultivator did not dare to die, but there were so many monks in the sky, and at a glance, there were hundreds of Golden Core Realm monks. This scene, just like the future fragments presented by Yilin in the Book of Orinomi, it is so sad and despairing. Only, the location is not here. In Qingdu. Yilin opened his arms and faced the monks all over the sky. After taking a deep breath, the skinny Lin Yi smiled slightly. If there is an afterlife, see you in the next life. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 967. The monks all over the sky are ready to make a move. In their eyes, the current Lin Yi is not a big devil, a golden elixir monk, or an innocent lamb, but a golden treasure box. This is obviously a treasure boy. In the sky, the sword made of cloud was like the sword of Damocles hanging above everyone's head. But this supreme sword intention is only aimed at monks above the Golden Core Realm. The Golden Core Realm monks, under the temptation of immediate interests, did not notice the strange cloud in the sky at all. Let us do justice for heaven and slay demons. After Yilin kicked two letters and crushed them, the slight sound seemed to be a signal. Everyone was afraid that Lin Yi was cheating, so after a snap, the golden elixir monks all over the sky moved out one after another, using their pure essence to drive their magic flying swords to kill Lin Yi. This scalp-numbing scene did not frighten Wang Xiaohu, but made him dizzy. He was just about to take action to help Brother Lin, but unexpectedly, Zen Master Tianxin next to him chanted a Buddhist chant, which made Wang Xiaohu's ears buzz. The true energy he had just gathered dispersed without a trace in an instant, and could no longer be recovered. With a little bit of strength, he is like an ordinary person. Master Tianxin. Wang Xiaohu lay on the wooden fish in an embarrassed posture. He looked at Zen Master Tianxin of Ping'an Temple with hatred and anger. Madness. Beside, Zen Master Kisapa hit Wang Xiaohu's bare head so hard that he almost gave Wang Xiaohu a concussion. Wang Xiaohu was struck like an enlightenment and sobered up a bit. He thought of the boundless anger that surged in his heart at that moment, and was secretly frightened. However, he felt that his anger was normal, but inappropriate. So Wang Xiaohu stood up in embarrassment, biting his lower lip, looking at Lin Yi who was already surrounded by the monks' attacks, and shouted in a mute voice, as if crying, "Master Tianxin, he is my brother. It's me, Wang Xiaohu, who is here the only brothers with different surnames in the world. What is a brother? Zen Master Tianxin sighed. Live and die together, no regrets. Even if you failed to live up to his good intentions. Zen Master Tianxin took a deep look at Wang Xiahua. Wang Xiahua was stunned when he heard this. Buddhists like to play riddles when talking and like to guess. When Wang Xiahua first entered the industry, he felt very uncomfortable, but over time, he became accustomed to the master's chat style of talking without telling the truth. At that moment, he took a deep breath, and in the electric light and flint, Wang Xiaohua's mind I turned over and over again and pondered the few words of Zen Master Tianxin. Buzz. Wang Xiahua meditates on a giant wooden fish with his legs crossed. I saw a slight sound around him, and with his eyebrows as the center, circles of golden treasure light rippled and scattered into the night sky. Wang Xiahua sat on the wooden fish, his frown gradually calmed down, and the anger and sadness in his heart became as calm as water and as steady as a sage in just a few seconds. Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva sees the endless life and death of all things, heavenly eyesight. Wang Xiahua opened his eyes. At the edge of his dark eyes, a golden light flashed faintly. In Wang Xiaohua's eyes, Lin Yi, who was surrounded by countless flying sword magic weapons, seemed to have a faint wisp of green smoke burning above his head. The green smoke curled up, only burned an inch long, and then disappeared into the void. After a while, Wang Xiahua, who was calm, looked shocked again. Brother Lin is not going to die soon. But this is, why? Impossible. Brother Lin is already healthy. This is unscientific. Amitabha, Zen Master Tianxin clasped his hands together. All conditioned Dharma is like a dream or a shadow. The face of Donor Lin is the most bizarre I have ever seen in his life. There is no way to come and no destination to return to, but in this life, he has at the end, everything has its destiny. Although Lin Yi's actions were not liked by the old man, what he is doing now may be his last wish before leaving the West. Chun Zhen, why should you force it? When Wang Xiahua turned on his half-baked clairvoyance and scanned Lin Yi's body like a scanner, although Wang Xiahua didn't know why Brother Lin did this, he must have his own difficulties and reasons for doing so. Boom! Wang Xiaohua's eyes darkened. The words Yi Lin said echoed back and forth in his mind. If there is an afterlife, see you in the next life. Yi Lin started a melee with the monks. He was the one being beaten. The texture of the free method appeared on Yi Lin's wrists. The throne suspended in the void bloomed with bright light above Yi Lin's spiritual sea. When all the variables are disassembled into parts and integrated on the throne, when Yi Lin wants to use them, they can be picked up smoothly. Facing the monks all over the sky, Yi Lin's thin and pale sick face revealed a glow of incomparable confidence. He is not a monk. He is an apostle. A spiritual apostle who is known for his spirituality. He believes that the evolutionary direction he has followed may not be the best, but it must be the most suitable for him. Knowledge is the most priceless treasure house. I travel through dimensions. Read thousands of books. The art of realizing the truth. The palm of your hand is endlessly changing. An extremely faint shadow of the throne was suspended behind Yi Lin. This phantom of the throne seems to be fragmented, but in the flowing light, it contains infinite and shocking mysteries. He spent so many years, day and night, under Green's guidance. Yi Lin carved everything he had learned in his life on the throne bit by bit. Every time Yi Lin wrote a picture on the throne, she felt that she was getting further and further away from completion. But Yi Lin became more and more happy, because he felt that this was not a bad thing. The sea of knowledge is endless, and precisely because there are many unknowns means that he can go further on this path. In Yu terms, everyone has his own way. Yi Lin closed her eyes and was filled with emotion. Time between heaven and earth did not stop. When Yi Lin uttered a strange soliloquy, hundreds of flying swords penetrated the thin body in an instant. But what surprised hundreds of golden elixir monks was that when the flying sword penetrated Lin Yi's body, it left no trace, as if it penetrated the air, giving people an unreal illusion. Immediately afterwards, the sword has its own way. Yi Lin's voice sounded hundreds of meters away. Everyone turned around. But at some point, Lin Yi appeared strangely there. They were about to attack the second Lin Yi. As soon as the voice changed, the third Lin Yi's voice sounded again in the group of monks. Demons have their own ways. The fourth Lin Yi, Buddha has the Buddha's way. The fifth Lin Yi, demons have demon ways. The sixth Lin Yi, there are deceitful ways. The seventh Lin Yi, there is a right way. The eighth Lin Yi, everyone is humane. The ninth Lin Yi, God, also has a divine way. In the sky, Lin appeared one after another. Each Lin is sitting, standing, or lying down. Each Lin Yi has a different posture and different movements. But the only thing that is the same is that all the faces of Lin Yi, which are so pale that there is no blood at all, have the same expression. They were all deep in thought. They all seemed to be thinking about a serious question. Their solemn expressions made all the monks present, including the elders, look at Lin Yi in shock. They vaguely noticed that Lin Yi was, an amazing change is taking place. Is it a cover-up? No. Ordinary blinding techniques have no effect on golden core cultivators, and golden core cultivators upwards do not even bother to use such crude techniques as blinding techniques. Pure power is enough to eliminate all illusions. And all the golden elixir monks could clearly see that Lin Yi's figure all over the sky had the aura of Lin Yi, a heartbeat and a breath. External incarnation. Taoist Huoyun of Fenchen Valley, who was frightened by the supreme sword intent in the air and did not dare to go down, looked at countless Lin Yi, his eyes were about to burst, and he let out a horrified cry. But as soon as he said this, he subconsciously closed his mouth, for fear that others would hear this stupid idea. The external incarnation is a great magical power that can only be used by fossil-level monks above the God transformation stage. Each incarnation has an independent personality, and can even have the same cultivation and magical powers as the original body. Not to mention that there is no way that Lin Yi is a monk in the God transformation stage. Taking a step back, Lin Yijin is so outrageous that he went against the will of heaven and became a God transformation stage. How can a mere human be separated from such an exaggerated number of external incarnations? Impossible. When all the monks were so shocked that they didn't know what to say to lighten the atmosphere, the pensive Lin Yi men opened their eyes again. Everyone in Lin Yi is laughing. It was a smile as innocent and flawless as a green young boy. Everything in the world has a way, and I also have my way. There are so many things and infinite changes. This is my throne. Infinite throne. Infinity throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 968. Now. In the center of Yilin, on the barren coconut tree. The last coconut is quickly withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was about to fall. Green opened his eyes. It usually sleeps hanging upside down holding a coconut. But today, it can't hang anymore. If you hang it any longer, it seems like you will be able to pull out the last coconut. It's not time yet for him to truly become a knight. Green muttered, changed a branch, and hung himself up again. It squinted its eyes and looked at the slowly rotating throne above the spiritual sea. Infinity, throne. Green yawned lazily, and saw it raised half of its wings. An exquisite throne as red as blood and as crystal clear as glass, rotated rapidly on the tips of Green's wings. If someone were to use a microscope to look into the miniature throne on Green's wings right now, he might see a horrifying scene. Inside the throne, there are countless translucent faces, each with a different expression, either frightened, happy, angry, or ecstatic. Human faces constitute the surface of Green's throne, with layers of fine textures, so from the surface, the blood-red throne appears as magnificent as a gem. Compared with Yilin's throne and Green's throne, one is as rough jade, while the other is as flawless as a finely crafted luxurious gem. Green squinted his eyes and stared for a while. It felt a little bored and closed its eyes again. Well, the heat is a lot different, but... The little bat with his eyes closed stretched out his scarlet tongue and licked around his little face. He seemed to be imagining that he was licking something and muttered to himself. The future is promising. Lin Yi realized it. In this life, he was reincarnated as Lin Yi. Thanks to the talent bonus between reincarnations, Lin Yi's understanding was as full as it was. In this life, due to his weak constitution, he was destined not to have much talent in becoming a chi refiner. Because his body will leak. It doesn't matter if the air leaks, Yilin combines her own knowledge to create a soul clone on the throne, which stores spiritual energy like a battery and can be plugged and used. This allowed Yilin to embark on a unique path that ordinary chi practitioners could not take. And now, when Yilin said the words infinite throne, he vaguely felt that there seemed to be something in the dark, suddenly opening a brain hole in his mind, making him suddenly realize. This is what it feels like to have an epiphany on the spot. Every lonely night, he was sleeping on the surface, but secretly he was polishing his throne in the center. But now, his efforts have finally paid off. At that moment, he finally understood that he was here. No, it should be said that he understood the meaning of being born into this world as Lin Yi in his first life. He, Lin Yi, and Yilin must truly find their own Tao here. The moment Yilin opened her eyes. In the sky. All the Lin Yi's converged on one of them at the same time. Lin Yi, who was in deep thought, regrouped. The forest is all over the sky, and everything becomes one. Everyone was still horrified. They were Qigong practitioners and couldn't understand what happened to Yilin. They only felt that when all Lin Yi became the only Lin Yi again, the palpitations in their hearts did not lessen as the number of Lin Yi decreased. Yilin lowered his head and looked down at the world. He looked at the world again with great clarity. Bit by bit, minute by minute, extremely clear. At this moment, Yilin did not use the blood stored in the bloodthirsty catastrophe skill effect to forcefully increase her attribute values. However, he just glanced at the movements of all the monks and the edges of their outlines, and there was a faint trajectory that only he could see clearly, which seemed to indicate their next move. This kind of strange phenomenon does not come from the strengthening effect of analytical vision, but Yilin's computing power at this moment is as if he has been injected with demon blood and is particularly active. As he looks at each monk, he can't help but through their actions, they can calculate their next move. Because of reincarnation, even if Yilin slides her finger down and swipes open the apostle panel, there will only be garbled characters on it. But Yilin suddenly understood through the changes before her eyes and through the subtle changes in logical thinking. Finally a breakthrough, this is, the state after the breakthrough of the second-level spiritual lock. Finally. Even if Yilin has not been strengthened by the trials, he has spent 20 years in this world, thinking, learning, and calculating. After 20 years, his spiritual attributes have, gradually growing over the years, in today's rare opportunity of enlightenment, I broke through the second spiritual lock and reached a new realm. The apostle broke through a barrier and surpassed human limits, calling it extraordinary. And when the apostle reaches the end of the extraordinary and breaks through the second lock, he calls it legend. It's not the legend of legendary equipment. But when the apostle no longer relies on legendary equipment and his own strength is enough to be called a legend, this realm is legendary. With a mortal body, he can stand shoulder to shoulder with legends. Change of plans. Among the factions that besieged and killed Lin Yi were the Burning Sky Valley, the sword-making villa, and the casual cultivators from all sides who coveted the Empress treasure. Some high-level cultivators who were afraid of the supreme sword intent in the sky did not dare to act rashly. When they noticed the huge change in Lin Yi's temperament, the high-level monks hiding in the dark all changed their expressions in unison. Lin Yi still didn't have the special aura of a monk. He didn't even have any spiritual energy fluctuations on his body, just like a rotting corpse. But his temperament cannot deceive anyone. At this moment, Lin Yi actually gives everyone the illusion that he is naturally made and Tao follows nature. This child must not be kept. Even if the Tianjian sect wants to kill Bao Lin Yi, even if the supreme sword intention in the sky will fall on everyone's head at any time. But today's Lin Yi not only made a strange breakthrough, but also carried the Empress's treasure. If Lin Yi is allowed to leave here alive tonight, with what he has done in the past 2 years, he has committed countless evil deeds. When Lin Yi finds a way to recover, or, after curing the stubborn physical illness, next year today, everyone present will die under Lin Yi's mysterious assassination. Lin Yi must not be allowed to live. The plan has changed. Kill Lin Yi at any cost. Even if we can't win the Empress treasure, Lin Yi will never keep it. This time, we are really doing justice for heaven and bringing blessings to all people in the world. Kill, kill, kill. Taoist Huoyun, Ling Kongzi, and other high-level monks above the Golden Core Cultivator all unanimously released their true aura and no longer stood idly by. All kinds of rays of light rose into the sky, one pillar holding the sky. Fiery red clouds swept across the night, and the red flames contained a blazing white flame core. Taoist Huoyun looked solemn. He controlled the flames in the sky and turned into a ferocious four-legged beast, rushing towards Lin Yi. At the moment when the flame beast appeared, the space was like being burned by fire. The moisture in the air evaporated instantly. Hundreds of Jindan monks were unable to get even close to Taoist Huoyun. Their hair was withered and their bodies were scorched. The taste of Ling Kongzi, from Zhejian Villa, was not to be outdone when Taoist Huoyun took action. As soon as the sword box was opened, countless dazzling sword lights split the night into pieces. The flying swords gathered into dragons in the air, came to life, and fell towards Yilin. Retreat. Bai Taixin let out a long sigh, pulled Jian Nanshan, who was about to charge forward, and quickly retreated. No matter what Lin Yi realized, before he left Tianjian sect, he only had the cultivation level of Jindan. No matter how much he realized, it was impossible to cross the gap between the two realms in a short period of time. Although the two people who were the first to take action were not as good as him, they were both famous seniors who had condensed the nascent soul and reached the great perfection of the out-of-body stage. There is only one step left to enter the state of distraction that is almost at the ceiling level in today's Suanman world. The two masters of the Dzogchen out-of-body realm took action at the same time, and there was almost no suspense about Lin Yi's death. Amitabha. After arriving at the scene, he chose to be the loser of Ping'an Temple. Zen Master Tianxin knocked out Wang Xiahua, who was crying heartbrokenly, and immediately controlled the Buddhist treasure and retreated to avoid being affected by the combined attack of the two. For a moment, the two of them teleported hundreds of miles away, looking intently at the fire beast burning the sky in the distance and the Stegosaurus tearing the sky apart. The combined force of the two had already submerged Lin Yi's figure, making it completely unclear. Suspense. Suddenly, Bai Taixin, who pulled away, subconsciously raised his head when he was feeling depressed, feeling the anger-filled supreme sword intent in the sky. If there is still a final trace of suspense about Lin Yi's life and death, it depends on the one who has been entrenched in the sixth heaven. The red fire light reflected Yilin's face, dispelling the sickly paleness on Yilin's face. A long dragon of sword light composed of 10,000 flying swords reflected a ferocious shape in Yilin's pupils. Now, Yilin raised her head and stared at the sky. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate layers of clouds and barriers in the sky, and he looked at the old man in the sixth level of the sky with an expression as ferocious as a glaring King Kong. That's enough, Lao Chen. If there is an afterlife, come and drink together again. As soon as Yilin finished speaking, the supreme sword intent in the sky stopped for a moment. Free method kaleidoscope. Yilin smiled, coughed up a large mouthful of black blood, and clapped his hands in the middle. Crash dash. With the crisp sound, with Yulin as the center, the sky, the earth, and the space suddenly shattered like fragile glass, breaking into colorful fragments all over the sky. This scene before my eyes. It seems like Lin Yi's palm hit the ground. Break the world into pieces. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 969. A strange scene, magnificent and magical. No one would have thought that Lin Yi, a mere golden elixir monk, could smash the void with a flip of his hand. And the way the void fragments is particularly artistic and beautiful. Far away, the colorful light and shadow overlapped with the fire clouds and Stegosaurus, and everyone was stunned. But a moment later, a small hole appeared in the shattered space. Around the small hole, the light and shadow were distorted. The giant flame beast and the flying sword dragon were forcibly twisted into a vortex and sucked into the small hole. For a moment, the scene before everyone's eyes was like looking down at the flushing toilet while the toilet was flushing, and the different colored baba were swirling around with the water, being sucked into a black hole and disappearing. The scorching heat suddenly dropped. The dazzling firelight in the distance was once again covered with the color of night as the giant flame beast and Stegosaurus were sucked away by the small hole. From beginning to end, everything happened too fast, in the blink of an eye. When the monks who had fled far away came to their senses, Ling Kongzi and Taoist Huoyun joined forces to kill Lin Yi, and the place had long since returned to peace. Master, your jaw seems to have dropped. Jian Nanchun opened his mouth as if he could swallow a coconut. He turned to look at Bai Taixin, whose mouth was even wider than his, and couldn't help but kindly remind him. Click, click. Bai Taixin's face darkened, and he pressed his palm from bottom to top, easily pressing the fallen mandibular joint back into the temporomandibular joint socket. Bai Pang, you're fat again. At the battle place where the dust should have settled, a flamboyant laughter came into Bai Taixin's hands. I saw Lin Yi riding a black two-wheeled magic weapon with a roar like the roar of a beast. One person and one car passed over the heads of Bai Taixin and other Discipline Mountain disciples at high speed. Yi Lin put on the mage's hanging ring, sat on Night Dyer's seat, and quickly turned her right hand in circles. A space wormhole filled with sparks appeared accurately on Night Dyer's movement trajectory. The next second, as soon as the wormhole was formed, Yi Lin rode Nightmare, swished through the wormhole, and disappeared in front of all the monks. Bai Taixin's face turned dark, and the corners of his mouth twitched. His figure swayed, and the next moment he appeared at the center of the battle before Lin Yi left. I saw that the ground had become a piece of scorched earth, with ravines like spider webs spread all over the earth. Ling Kongzi and Taoist Huoyun were hundreds of meters apart, each lying on one side, breathing weakly. Taoist Huoyun's Taoist robe was torn into pieces as if he had been brutally insulted. Ling Kongzi was on the contrary, his clothes were completely burned, his skin was scorched black and black smoke was rising. Anyone who understands can see such a scene at a glance. When Lin Yi used a strange spell just now to shatter the space, Ling Kongzi and Huoyun Taoist's moves fell on each other respectively. You hit me, I hit you. In the end, Lin Yi got the advantage. Evil traitor. After a moment of silence, Bai Taixin's mouth twitched even more, and he became furious. Jian Nanchun also rushed over, secretly shocked by the miserable state of the two seniors on the ground. Looking back at the master's face. That twitching old face. Why, it doesn't look like you are angry, but rather like you are suppressing a smile. The survivors looked at each other. But someone among the monks reacted, chase. Na Lin must be at the end of his strength to escape in embarrassment after receiving the moves of the two seniors. Yes. It must be so. But where did he escape? Among the remaining monks there are many talented people who are proficient in side sects. Someone looked at the sky, then lowered his head and counted with his fingers. Qingdu. Lin must have gone to Qingdu. What he covets is the destiny of the human emperor. Chase. A year ago, Yilin traveled far and wide. While exploring, unknowingly, he arrived at the coast of the East China Sea. He waited at the beach for a month, calculated the date with his fingers, and returned to the mountains at the moment when the stars on the hanging fairy island were connected. No one knew he was back. Except Chen Bei. Maybe the leader of the group knew it too, but she turned a blind eye and didn't give Yilin a high-altitude blow. Yilin quietly went home and returned to the Lin family villa. Visiting the old place again, the scenery remains the same. Two old men, with gray hair on their temples, were taking care of the flowers and plants in the yard. He is the second elder of the Lin family. After Chen Bei brought the two of them to live in the fairy mountain, he arranged them in the Linzai villa. With Chen Bei's seniority in Tianjian sect, it is not easy for the head brother to arrange for two mortals to live there. The two elders of the Lin family were completely unable to notice that Lin Yi, who was observing them from high in the sky, was still busy with his own work, with a rosy complexion and an expression of longevity. You're back. Although Yilin came back secretly without notifying anyone, who was Chen Bei. He soon noticed a strange smell in Linzai's villa and rushed here in a hurry. Lao Chen, long time no see. The two had been separated for several years. Under a pure waterfall, Chen Bei built a stone platform in the river and set out tables and chairs, and the two drank and chatted. You got into a lot of trouble when you went out this time. Chen Bei stared at Yilin's exaggeratedly thin face, his eyes flickering. Don't you have anything to tell me? Yilin smiled and stretched out her wrist. Chen Bei's eyes were focused, and his shot was like lightning, and he immediately probed Yilin's vein gate. You, Chen Bei looked at his old acquaintance in horror. After a little investigation, he realized that Yilin was seriously ill, and immediately said, I will take you to find Lao Yet. The fairy grass in his garden countless, there must be a way to keep you alive. He dares to be stingy this time, I have to kill him. When Chen Bei said this, Ye Liangchen, who was taking care of the herb garden while humming an unknown ditty, suddenly trembled and shuddered involuntarily. No need, Lao Chen, I know my own business. Yilin shook his head, rejected Chen Bei's kindness, and smiled lightly. Life and death are destiny, wealth is in heaven. This is not an illness, but destiny. Monk, it can prolong life, but it can't change one's destiny against the will of heaven. Humph, that's an ordinary monk. Chen Bei sneered, the implication being, he is extraordinary. Yilin knew that Chen Bei would not be able to accept the news that she was about to die of illness for a while, so it was not surprising. Yilin filled a cup for Chen Bei, raised it to invite him to drink, and said with a smile, Don't worry, I can live for about 1 year in this life. I vaguely felt the day when my life was about to end. To be honest, this feeling was really wonderful. Some people used to say that before an old man died, he could clearly feel the sound of death approaching bit by bit. In the past, I always didn't believe it, but now, I kind of believe it. Chen Bei was speechless. After a moment of silence, he raised his head and drank the wine in the glass. He has always loved fine wine, but for some reason he felt that today's Zizou wine was particularly bitter. It must have been brewed for not enough years. Yilin continued, to make a long story short, I have 2 things to do when I come back this time. I passed by the East China Sea and came back to take care of them. Speak quickly. The first is to meet my 2 elders. Now that I see that my 2 elders are in good health and live a contented life, I, Lin Yi, will no longer have any worries in my life. Aren't you going to meet them? Yilin smiled and shook his head, No, I don't want you 2 to see me like this. If they ask about it in the future, Just think of a reason to put it off. Just say, I am in the secular world. I married a whole house of virtuous and graceful ladies, openly had 3 wives and 4 concubines, I hated my high position, I only worried about having children and grandchildren, I lamented that my life was satisfactory, and occasionally I could seek a little excitement. Lao Chen was silent and drank another drink. Lin Yi's tone became more relaxed, which made Chen Bei feel that the wine in the cup was becoming more and more bitter and astringent. As for the second one, Yulin raised her glass and collided with Chen Bei's wine glass. The 2 glasses made a crisp collision sound. Yulin suddenly raised her head and glanced into the sky. I don't want to let you know what I'm going to say next. Your junior sister, the head of the supreme sect, hears it, is that okay? Chen Bei was stunned for a moment, then nodded, and with a flick of his finger, a bright curtain of light rose up, covering the stone platform on the river where the 2 were drinking. Lao Chen, I want to help junior sister fulfill a wish, and at the same time, I am also helping myself fulfill a wish. Only by doing this can I achieve my goal. If you believe me, please do one thing for me. The young man stood up slowly. He should have been in his prime at this young age, but at this moment, his back was like the wind helping his old age. His deep-set eye sockets were frighteningly thin, and his whole body exuded a strong aura of decay. But the young man turned his back to Chen Bei and faced the Pangchuo waterfall, which dropped 3,000 feet straight. The fire in his eyes never dissipated. This is my lifelong request. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Xueshi. Chapter 970. 5 o'clock in the morning. The sky turned white. Zhenyi Wang's army took advantage of the situation to charge. Daqian's army was defeated and retreated to the gate of Qingdu City. Retreat to the point of no return. Behind it is the capital city of Daqian. Far away, the southern king's army stretched its front like a great wall of flesh and blood. 300,000 troops, united as one, gathered into a raging fire, burning up the night. Even though it was invisible to the naked eye, the commander-in-chief and others could feel the momentum of the southern king's army at this moment from the blackheads and the deafening killing sounds, which completely suppressed the Daqian army. The trend has been established and is unstoppable. This king is destined by fate, and I will not kill anyone who surrenders. King Zhenyi stood in front of the army, showing his royal dignity. Uncle Emperor, do you really want to do this? Xia Xiaomen's face was ashen. She flew forward and looked down at the 300,000 strong army, as well as Xia Xingchen, who had put on a dragon robe in front of the army. Emperor Ji Sheng has been assassinated by the Apocalypse assassins. The entire country cannot be left without an owner for a day. I, Xia Xingchen, am just following the destiny. My dear niece, please don't stop me. King Zhenyi smiled and looked at the angry Xia Xiaomen in the sky, and tried to dissuade him with words. Although he deliberately wrote down Xia Xiaomen's name in the killing list at the beginning. But since he knew that the true identity of the Apocalypse assassin was Lin Yi, he naturally also knew about the relationship between Lin Yi and Xia Xiaomen. Therefore, Xia Xingchen was not surprised that Xia Xiaomen could survive until now. So what if Xia Xiaomen is alive? Xia Jishan is dead, and there is no more male son in the bloodline left by Emperor Xia Yuan. As the elder brother of Emperor Xia Yuan, he was already the destined emperor, and he was sure of victory. Therefore, now that King Zhenyi is full of confidence, and with the seniors of Maluo Palace guarding the formation, Xia Xiaomen cannot attack him even though he has the dual identities of eldest princess and Jindan monk of Tianjian sect. The natural thing of ascending to the throne of God poses no threat. When Xia Xingchen told the news of Xia Jishan's death, Xia Xiaomen's face turned pale, he staggered and almost crashed from the air. No, you lied. She didn't believe it. She subconsciously didn't believe it. First, I don't believe that Xia Jishan will die. The second is that she doesn't believe that her senior brother Lin Yi will kill her younger brother with his own hands. That's her biological brother. Senior brother Lin Yi can never be so cruel. I do not believe. Xia Xiaoman looked crazy, raised his frost snow sword, and started to kill Xia Xingchen. At this point, there is no way out. Xia Xiaoman plans to kill Xia Xingchen with a desperate blow. Ha ha ha. The Apocalypse assassin assassinated the late emperor and the 300,000 troops were there for all to see. Why should I scare you? King Genies laughed loudly, with Protector Feng beside him, and with the idea of helping a little bit, he clapped his palm in the air, preparing to kill Xia Xiaoman, who was as weak as an ant. But just as Feng Protector raised his palms, high up in the 6th level of the sky, Chen Bei, who had been closing his eyes, pressed the void with his palms, and the supreme sword intent was suppressed on the same day, shocking the whole party. Oh, Protector Fen noticed that the supreme sword hanging in the sky was a bit fiercer, and suddenly understood that the mysterious master hiding in the sky who did not want to show up was looking after his disciple. After all, while Xia Xiaoman is the eldest princess, she is also the proud disciple of Tianjian sect. The depressed wind protector immediately reduced 90% of his strength, and with a gentle blow, Xia Xiaoman was blown hundreds of meters away, and crashed into Qingdu city. The houses along the way collapsed instantly under the impact of Xia Xiaoman's body. The people who took refuge in the houses immediately screamed and fled to the streets when they felt the vibrations and waves. After Xia Xiaoman knocked down the buildings on 2 streets one after another, he finally released the force of the palm. He saw Xia Xiaoman lying in the rubble covered in blood, his eyes darkened, and he almost fainted. Protector Feng could easily kill Xia Xiaoman with this palm. The difference between the two realms was too great, but under the threat of Chen Bei, he could only pretend to fly Xia Xiaoman away to prevent the Demon Luo Palace and the Heavenly Sword. The door was torn open on both sides. Now is not the time to break up. My good niece, obediently hand over the Jade Seal of Genkuo. Together, you and I can build a prosperous world. He is still thinking about the Jade Seal of Genkuo that Emperor Xia Yuan handed over to Xia Xiaoman. In Xia Xingchen's view, the Genkuo Jade Seal symbolizes the legitimacy of the human emperor in Daqian. Emperor Xia Yuan did not pass it on to Xia Jishan, but secretly left it to Xia Xiaoman, which was a very stupid thing. Is that useful? This is completely useless. King Genies laughed, raised his right hand high, and lowered it heavily. At this point, the overall situation has been decided, and he no longer has any intention of killing Xia Xiaoman. Firstly, killing Xia Xiaoman would not be of any benefit to his ascension to the throne. Secondly, as Xia Xiaoman's imperial uncle, if he brutally killed Xia Xiaoman in front of so many people, he would leave a legacy for the people in the future. The impression of cruelty and cruelty. He, Xia Xingchen, is determined to be a prosperous and wise king. Although he has not officially ascended the throne yet, this does not prevent Xia Xingchen from starting to be strict with himself. From now on, he will first create an image of a benevolent king. The southern king's 300,000 strong army was already ready to attack. After receiving Xia Xingchen's order, they all launched a charge towards Qingdu. In this battle between dragons and tigers, King Genies' army suffered little loss. Now that 300,000 troops have entered the city, even the commander has no power to resist. He decisively gave up fighting to the death, and the 5 generals under his command looked at him in confusion. During the battle, he decided to retreat into the city and tightly closed the city gate. Tens of thousands of soldiers on the city wall rained down arrows on the Nanwang army. But this measure was not a big obstacle to King Genies. The shield soldiers resisted in front, forming a steel shield, and the siege equipment that came with the army easily broke through the city gate with just a few sticks of incense, and the army entered the city and went straight to the palace. Lost. The commander's face was ashen, and there were only a few tens of thousands of Daqian's troops left. they retreated all the way into the palace. The king of Genies was very high-spirited and marched like a dragon and a tiger with an army of 300,000. 100,000 were divided and quickly surrounded the 4 gates of Kingdu, and the remaining 200,000 occupied Kingdu. Every street in Kingdu was filled with soldiers holding the flag of King Nanhai. Under the instruction of King Genies, they did not use violence against the panicked people in the city, but tried to comfort them, fully showing that they were the righteous party. The sky was already glowing with white light, and the morning sun was about to rise. King Genies looked up at the thick clouds in the sky, frowning slightly, feeling a little unhappy in his heart. But after the film, he smiled again and felt that his requirements for the atmosphere of the scene were a bit too high. As long as he could step on that throne, even if it rained in the sky and washed away the hustle and bustle of the world, so what? Is it possible that you still don't give up even now? In front of the Golden Palace where the great commander leads his troops, behind him is the 99-step ladder to heaven. King Genies stepped forward and looked at the man who had left various legendary deeds in the history of Dakian. But now, when King Genies came to the Dakian palace as a victor, the aura that had enveloped the commander in the past seemed so ridiculous again, making Xiaoxing Chen feel that the history of the commander had become his foil. The commander's face was cold, and his face was stained with blood. He looked at King Genies who was approaching step by step, and the sword he just raised dropped softly. Xiaoxing Chen was like anyone else, walking past the disheartened commander-in-chief. Even the commander-in-chief had given up. The 5 generals under his command had lost all fighting spirit and watched helplessly as Xiaoxing Chen stepped onto the ladder to heaven. Xiaoxing Chen's eyes were blurred, looking at the golden-domed palace after the 99 steps to the heaven. He clearly remembered that concubine Shu held the young Xiaojishan and walked up the stairs in the same way under the gaze of everyone. Stairway to heaven, step into the golden palace, surrounded by all the civil and military officials of the dynasty, sit on the throne of the human emperor. He had waited too long for this day. Xiaoxing Chen walked very fast, crossing the last line of defense and stepping onto the golden stairs. I, Xiaoxing Chen, am destined to be the king. Today, I am going to climb up step by step, climb to the highest level, and sit on the position that should belong to me. Years of forbearance. Many years of planning. Years of waiting. Finally, Xiaoxing Chen waited for this day. In the blink of an eye, Xiaoxing Chen was halfway there. As Xiaoxing Chen climbed up, the sky gradually turned white. Even though it was covered by dark clouds, pieces of golden light suddenly fell from the clouds, falling on Xiaoxing Chen like rain. Side. Behind Xiaoxing Chen, there was a dragon-shaped aura, spiraling straight up into the sky. The dark clouds that shrouded Kingdu were blown out of a big hole by the dragon-shaped aura rushing up from behind Xiaoxing Chen. The Emperor's luck. This brilliance visible to the naked eye shocked and horrified everyone below. This was a strange scene that Xiaojishan had never seen before when he ascended the throne. Doesn't such a comparison prove that Xiaojishan is not the human emperor to whom he is truly destined? He has only been sitting on this throne for 20 years? No. Impossible. The commander-in-chief, who had a face as deep as water, suddenly changed his face when he saw the dragon-shaped luck coiled up. A look of horror flashed in his eyes, and he flew up without caring about anything else, heading straight for the Golden Palace. Even when defeat was certain, the commander-in-chief never showed such a panicked expression, but when Xiaoxing Chen was shrouded in a strange vision, the commander-in-chief was so panicked, which made the generals of the 6 armies puzzled. But when the commander-in-chief moved, the 5 generals under his command gritted their teeth and immediately followed. Immediately afterwards, the generals under the command of King Genies, fearing that the commander-in-chief did not respect martial ethics, hurriedly followed without the instructions of King Genies, and fought with Dakian soldiers on the ladder to heaven. One step, one step, one step. Every time Xiaoxin Chen took a step, the dragon-shaped luck on his body became more intense. When he finished the 99 steps, his whole body was covered with a shocking light. Looking from a distance, he looked like a statue of calm and self-power. The emperor is chilling. Xiaoxin Chen himself seemed unaware of the strange phenomena around him. His eyes were blazing, staring intently at the open golden palace not far away, as well as the empty seat waiting deep in the palace. The throne of the human emperor. Ha 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 ha. Xiaoxin Chen moved. He couldn't stay on this short road of several tens of meters for a second. He turned around and arrived in front of the throne in an instant. No. Xia Xiaoman, who was knocked into the rubble by Protector Feng's palm, finally regained his breath and rushed over. The commander-in-chief and the generals of the 5 armies also came to the palace. The sound of fighting under the stairs seemed to be 2 worlds away from them, making them deaf. In their eyes, they only saw Prince Nan in front of the palace, and in their ears, they only heard Prince Nan's hearty laughter. It's impossible, this is different from what was promised. The commander-in-chief showed an expression of despair. King Genies caressed his wife on the carved dragon throne for a moment, then turned around, his eyes were like lightning, looking directly at the people outside the palace, and his voice was like thunder, which came out slowly. From today on, I am the one who is destined by the people and destined by destiny. I am, the Stardust Emperor. King Genies sat down. This sitting seemed to announce the birth of the new leader of Dakian to the whole world and the common people. But the next second after King Genies sat down, outside the Golden Palace, everyone who witnessed King Genies sitting on the throne did not expect. Boom! Boundless heat waves blew out of the temple. In front of the Golden Palace, everyone's hair was pulled back. The throne of the human emperor exploded. The one that exploded together was the Star Emperor, who had just sat on the throne of the human emperor for less than 3 seconds.